Okay, so now we've got this behemoth of a function that's going to pre-process our data. Let's try run our df test that we just imported up here and tried to make some predictions on. So we imported it here, tried to make some predictions on it, but it didn't work because it's not in the same format as the training data. Let's run it through our pre-processed data, and hopefully, if we've done it correctly, it's going to make the same changes on df test as we have on the training data. So let's go here, df test equals, or actually we'll put a little comment here, process test data, and we might just reinstantiate to make sure that we'll hit shift enter here, just to make sure that these cells have run. I've been notorious in writing a function and then not running the cell, so it actually doesn't work. Pre-process data df test, and then we should be able to check it out by going df test.head. Okay, 101 columns. Oh, that's looking better. So we're up a fair few columns from what we started with. We go back here, we started with 52 columns. Now if we go through here, okay, on the end there's a fair few missing. All right, okay, so it's going to be missing the sales price column. Okay, that makes sense, but still a different shape to Xtrain. So we've got 101 versus 102 columns. And now if you remember in the end of last video, I asked to have a think about where this function might break. And if you're not sure, that's fine. I've stumbled across this many of times, right? In the process of trying to make our training data or our test data in the same format as our training data. And what it is that the test data, when we imported it, is slightly different to the training data. As in, let me demonstrate. We're doing model-driven EDA, so we'll try to make a prediction again. So make predictions on updated test data. We go test preds equal ideal model dot predict df test. We get value error again. Hold on, I just pre-processed it. What's wrong? Let's check it out. Number of features of the model must match the input. Model n features is 102. Okay, that's what our model has been trained on. And input features is n101. Well, we just saw this when we went xtrain.head. That's 102 columns. So there is a difference in the number of columns that our test data frame and our training data frame have. Hence why our machine learning model doesn't work. So how would we figure out where the difference is? Well, we can do that using the columns attribute and turning them into sets. Let's have a look. So we can find how the columns differ using a Python set. If you've heard of sets, they're basically a list with only unique values in them. So we can go set xtrain.columns minus set df test.columns. And now this is going to tell us which columns are incorrect. Auctioneer ID is missing. So our df test has no column, auctioneer ID is missing. So what that means is when we imported our test data frame, according to our function, it didn't have any auction ID values that are missing. So what we can do is manually update a column on our df test data frame to have all false values for auction ID is missing. Because the reason being there is no column auctioneer ID. Man, if you can't tell, I'm having trouble saying auctioneer ID. The reason why our df test data frame has no column named this, right? This here, what I'm highlighting, is because all of the auctioneer ID values were filled in df test. So what we have to do is manually adjust df test to have auctioneer ID is missing column. And this is just as simple as adding df test. We'll just copy this here. So we'll create a new column and we're going to set it to just false because it had no missing value. So df.head, and now, df test.head, wrong data frame. So df test.head, 102 columns, beautiful. So if we come right to the end, it should have auctioneer ID is missing. Wonderful. So this means Finally, now our test data frame has the same features as our training data frame. We can make predictions. Let's do it. So make predictions on the test data. Wonderful. So we'll go test preds equals df test. Oh no, ideal model. So our ideal model dot predict df test. Boom, that worked. And now let's have a look. These should all be like prices, an array of prices, and it's going to be, how big is our test data frame? So these are all the sale prices that we've predicted. So 12,457 samples, but it's not going to help us in an array format because Kaggle expects it to be in a data frame with 2 columns, sales ID, sales price. So what we can do, we can turn it into that. So format predictions into the same format Kaggle is after. We've made some predictions, but they're not yet in the same format Kaggle is asking for. Now we'll just link that here. Evaluation, so we know we could go there. Okay, so how would we do this? Well, we need the sales ID column and we need the sales price prediction. So what we might do is just make a simple data frame, df preds equals pd.dataframe. So empty data frame, df preds. The sales ID column is just going to be sales ID from df test. So we can go equals df test sales ID. Oh, that needs to be the same capitalization. And then the sales price is going to be test preds. So just our array here. And then let's have a look at df preds. Boom. There we go. Look at that. How exciting. We've got a submission that we could submit to this Kaggle competition, but at the moment this Kaggle competition is no longer running, but that's an example of how you could get your data in a format that it's asking for. And then to export that, how might you do that? Well, if we wanted to export this to CSV, we might do something like df preds dot to, I'll put a little comment here, export prediction data to CSV. We'll put it into data and we'll go test predictions, something easy, .csv, and index equals false. Wonderful. Or actually, no, this is Blue Book for bulldozers. We'll see if that'll export. Let's go up into our data folder. Do we have that? Test predictions.csv. Wonderful. Okay. And so now we've got some test predictions. We can't really evaluate these though because we don't have the ground truth labels for the test data set. That's why we were doing our evaluation on the validation data set. So what we might look at, one final thing to wrap up this project, is feature importance. So we've just used the patterns. Where is it? Here. When we made predictions on the test data, we've used the patterns that our model has found in the training data set to make some predictions on sale price. And these patterns are how each of these columns contribute to predicting the sale price. So a logical thing or a good idea to figure out would be in feature importance, what columns here or what features meant the most when the model was trying to make a prediction. So let's do that in the next video.